Welcome back to exciting Europe. Welcome to Milan's magnificent Sforza Castle, not just an imposing fortress, but a powerful gateway to centuries of Italian art, history, and culture. This monumental structure houses a constellation of incredible civic museums. In this video, we're going beyond the castle walls to bring you a focused, curated look at the highlights, counting down the most important masterpieces hidden within. Our tour begins in the Pietà Rondanini Museum Michelangelo, home to the master's profound, unfinished final work. Then, we move on to the civic museums, starting with the legendary Room of the Wooden Boards, to look up at the breathtaking, illusionistic pergola painted by Leonardo da Vinci. Nearby, the picture gallery invites you to get lost among the canvases of masters, featuring celebrated works by artists like Andrea Mantegna and Canaletto. Stay with us for this outstanding tour of one of the most important museums in Italy.
Today, the castle is an unparalleled cultural hub, housing a collection of civic museums that offer something for every passion. Your visit begins with one of the castle's most profound treasures, the moving final sculpture of Michelangelo's Pietà Rondanini, housed in its own dedicated building, the former Spanish hospital, within the castle grounds. From there, the main route through the museum complex is structured as a one-way journey of interconnected museums, starting with the incredible collections of ancient art and sculpture. Here you can find monumental pieces from the Middle Ages and Renaissance, including the impressive Mausoleum of Bernabò Visconti. Continuing through the complex, you cannot miss the famous Rooms of the Masters, featuring the stunning ceiling fresco by Leonardo da Vinci in the Sala delle Asse. For painting and applied arts, the picture gallery is a must-see for works by Mantegna and Canaletto, while the Museum of Decorative Arts and the Furniture Museum showcase 6 centuries of Italian craftsmanship. Finally, you'll discover unique dives into history with the Museum of Musical Instruments and the extensive Archaeology Museum, which boasts both prehistoric Lombard finds and an impressive Egyptian section. It's a huge complex, but the beauty is that one simple ticket grants you access to all of these incredible collections.
On May 2nd, 2015, the Sforza Castle gained a profoundly moving new treasure, a museum dedicated entirely to the final, transcendent masterpiece of Michelangelo Buonarroti. The setting itself is powerful. This space, now an evocative gallery conceived by architect Michel de Lucchi, was once the castle's former Spanish hospital, a solemn location built in 1577 to care for the Iberian garrison and tragically housed the sick and the plague-stricken. As you look around, you can still see the magnificent original painted decoration on the ceiling and walls, featuring the Spanish coats of arms and illusionistic frescoes from the 16th century. The sculpture at the heart of the museum is the Pietà Rondanini, a work that defies convention. It's a profoundly intense depiction of the dead Christ held up by his standing mother. Michelangelo was nearly 90 years old when he worked on this marble, right up until a few days before his death in 1564. He constantly changed his mind, modifying the composition, even thinning the body of Christ and almost merging the two figures. This is why you can still see traces of the first version, such as Christ's detached right arm, broken at the elbow. The work was his last will and testament, and its journey to Milan was complicated. After being lost for centuries, it resurfaced in 1807, eventually acquired by the city of Milan in 1952.
Stepping into the Museum of Ancient Art, we are immediately confronted by a monumental work that defines 14th century Lombard statuary, the Mausoleum of Bernabò Visconti. This striking equestrian monument was commissioned by the Lord of Milan himself before 1363 and sculpted primarily by Bonino da Campione. Bernabò is immortalized on horseback as a soldier, clad in parade armor and holding the staff of command, a powerful image of Visconti might. The sculpture was carved from a single block of Candoglia marble and once glistened with gold and silver painting. Interestingly, the work was originally placed behind the altar of the Basilica of San Giovanni in Conca. However, after Bernabò's sudden death in 1385, his nephew, Gian Galeazzo Visconti, repurposed the statue as a tomb by adding a sarcophagus below. The tomb's base includes allegorical figures of justice and fortitude, emphasizing the ruler's perceived virtues. Look closely at the armor and the horse tack, and you'll see Bonino's peak of virtuosity in rendering intricate ornaments. The inscription on the monument features Bernabò's motto in ancient French: "Suffering is my virtue, but true suffering is to desist." This masterpiece has been a centerpiece of the castle's collection since 1898. From ancient power, we move to the height of Renaissance genius. We are now entering Room 8, the legendary Sala delle Asse, or the Room of the Wooden Boards. In 1498, Ludovico il Moro, the Duke of Milan, commissioned his resident master, Leonardo da Vinci, to decorate this space. The result is a spectacular, illusionistic marvel, an intricate pergola of mulberry trees. Leonardo used an optical trick, painting the fronds and 16 robust mulberry trees to interweave and create the feeling of being in an open, glorious grove, right inside the castle. The trees are further adorned with strong, gilded ropes that crisscross above you. The choice of the mulberry tree was intentional. It was a clever symbolic nod to Ludovico Sforza, who was known as Il Moro, partly due to his dark complexion, and who was also responsible for the flourishing of the silk industry in Lombardy, an industry dependent on the mulberry plant. Over the centuries, the room suffered, even being used as a stable during foreign domination. Thankfully, restoration efforts in the late 19th century and recent meticulous work by the Opificio delle Pietre Dure have led to astonishing discoveries. Beneath layers of plaster, restorers have found portions of Leonardo's original charcoal drawing on the walls, giving us an even deeper understanding of the master's technique.
From Leonardo's secular art, we move to a private spiritual sanctuary within the Duke's residence, the Ducal Chapel. This chapel was built in 1473 by Galeazzo Maria Sforza, who intended it to welcome the 22 cantors he had chosen from courts across Europe. The entire chapel was frescoed by a group of painters, including Bonifacio Bembo, Giacomino Vismara, and Stefano de Fedeli. The walls feature a background of shimmering gilded pastiglia, showcasing the rayed sun, an emblem the Duke was particularly fond of. The most unusual feature of the chapel is the vault motif, the guards at the sepulchre. Instead of the traditional depiction of soldiers sleeping during Christ's resurrection, these guards are shown in awkward, dynamic poses, seeming to almost leap into the air and fall back down to the ground. This rare and dramatic iconography provides a fascinating glimpse into Sforza taste. Like many parts of the castle, the chapel had a turbulent history, once even being used as a barn. Fortunately, early 20th century restoration work helped recover the severely damaged frescoes, allowing us to still appreciate this vibrant, private place of worship today.
This is one of the most remarkable and intact examples of 15th century fresco decoration in the entire castle. Commissioned by Pier Maria Rossi, Count of Berceto, in the mid-15th century, this entire cycle was actually detached from its original home in the Roccabianca Castle in Parma and reconstructed here. The cycle illustrates a famous and often shocking tale. The last story in Giovanni Boccaccio's Decameron. Narrated across the walls in 2 registers, the painter describes the extreme tests that Gualtieri, the Marquis of Saluzzo, inflicts upon his humble wife Griselda to measure her loyalty and obedience. Despite being told her children were put to death and being publicly repudiated, Griselda endures all with outstanding patience, ultimately keeping her family together. The complexity of the composition is beautifully rendered in monochrome gray against a green background, with rare color inserts. Look up, and the vault adds to the splendor, with the Sol Justicii in stucco relief, surrounded by 20 bays depicting constellations, planets, and signs of the zodiac. This entire work is attributed to a Lombard artist close to the style of Benedetto Bembo.
Continuing through the Museum of Furniture and Wooden Sculptures, which chronicles 6 centuries of evolving design, we come to a breathtaking example of the 17th century craftsmanship and intellect, the Passalacqua Cabinet. Described by its patron, Quintino Lucchini Passalacqua, as a very artificious writing desk, this Milanese masterpiece from 1613 is far more than just storage. The lower section is decorated with classical telemans, but the upper portion is a true work of art. When the drop-down lid is opened, the cabinet transforms into a writing desk and unveils its precious hidden contents. Inside, you discover a sumptuous palace facade filled with columns and niches that cleverly conceal 5 ingeniously hidden drawers. The cabinet's decorative system is rich with symbolic meaning. It features intricate ivory statues, small copper sheets painted with biblical scenes by artists like Morazone, and a central bronze figure representing reason being dragged away by 5 wild animals, which embody the 5 senses. This entire structure, following the patron's moralizing ideas, encourages the viewer to prevent the senses from overcoming reason, a stunning fusion of luxurious art and philosophy. This cabinet, with its complex artistry and hidden spaces, is a prime example of the kind of piece that would have furnished an aristocratic studiolo or cabinet of curiosity.
We now turn our attention to the magnificent picture gallery, home to some of the greatest names in Italian art. Our first stop here is a towering work of the Renaissance, Andrea Mantegna's Virgin in Glory, and St. John the Baptist, Gregory the Great, Benedict and Jerome, often referred to as the Trivulzio Madonna. Mantegna, a leading figure of Renaissance culture and court painter for the Gonzaga family, painted this altarpiece in 1497 for the high altar of the Church of Santa Maria in Organo in Verona. Mantegna created a monumental composition, but with a unique twist. The Virgin is not enthroned as per convention, but seems to be suspended in a luminous mandorla surrounded by cherubim. This iconography vividly alludes to Mary's ascent to heaven. The 4 saints below, John the Baptist, Gregory the Great, Benedict, and Jerome, are deliberately painted as if viewed from a low perspective, a technique that makes them appear immensely solemn and monumental. At the bottom, look for the 3 angels portrayed before an organ, a visual nod to the name of the Verona church itself, Santa Maria in Organo. This intriguing and important work joined the castle's collection in 1935 as part of the significant Trivulzio collection acquisition.
Our journey through the picture gallery concludes with a move to the 18th century and a celebrated view of a city far from Milan, Venice. We are looking at one of the gallery's masterpieces, Canaletto's The Dock, with the column of St. Mark, acquired by the city in 1995. Canaletto, a famed Venetian artist, achieves perfect balance in this canvas. He bestows dazzling clarity and emphasis on all elements of the view, from the monumental architectures lining the dock to the shimmering, sparkling waters of the lagoon. Look closely at the canvas. Venice is illuminated by a clear and transparent light, appearing to be captured in a moment of everyday life. You can glimpse a multitude of figures going about their daily activities on the boats and before the grand buildings. The elegant notes of color in the clothing and hats merge with the clear blue sky and the slightly rippling green water. This work, along with its matching companion piece, the dock towards the Zecca, is a superb example of Vedutista painting, where Canaletto transformed a precise topographical view into a stunning work of art. Even the elegant carved and gilded wooden frames are the originals, commissioned prior to 1742.
As you can see, a visit to the Sforza Castle museums is truly a multi-day journey, a profound, multi-sensory experience that goes far beyond the few masterpieces we've highlighted today. We didn't even have time to properly explore the spectacular Museum of Decorative Arts, home to some of Italy's finest applied arts, including its amazing collection of maiolica ceramics and glassware, tracing style from antiquity all the way through to the 20th century. Nor did we delve into the unique sounds of the Museum of Musical Instruments, which holds nearly 1,000 pieces spanning 4 centuries. And remember the picture gallery? We've only shown you 2 paintings, but it holds well over 1,500 paintings on display, waiting to be discovered. The Sforza Castle truly encapsulates Milan's rich history and artistic soul. If you enjoyed this glimpse into the castle's collections, remember to stay tuned for the final section of our video, which has all the practical details on opening hours, tickets, and how to plan your own multi-day visit. The Sforza Castle is magnificently situated in the historic heart of Milan, making it easy to reach. Just a short walk from the cathedral will get you there, or you can use the metro. Use the red line M1 and get off at the Cairoli stop, or take either the red M1 or green M2 line to the Cadorna FN stop. It is important to remember that the free-to-enter courtyards and the ticketed museums have different hours. The castle courtyards, which are free to access, are open every day, typically from 7 a.m. to 7:30 p.m. The castle museums, which require a ticket, are open Tuesday to Sunday from 10 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. All museums are closed on Mondays. A single ticket grants you access to all of the Sforza Castle civic museums. The full-price ticket for an adult is just €5. Your visit is comprised of 3 main areas included with your ticket. The journey begins with Michelangelo's Pietà Rondanini. This deeply moving final sculpture is located in its own separate building, the former Spanish hospital, on the castle grounds. Next, you visit the main museum circuit, which is the one-way path through the castle's central building, featuring the ancient art, picture gallery with Mantegna and Canaletto, decorative arts, and the stunning Sala delle Asse by Leonardo da Vinci. Finally, you discover the Egyptian collection, which is part of the Archaeology Museum, and is situated in the underground basement level of the main castle building.
Thank you for joining us on this incredible journey through the Sforza Castle masterpieces. Now go and experience this history for yourself. If this journey into the art and history of Milan has inspired you, don't let the exploration stop here. We've got an entire series dedicated to maximizing your time in this incredible city. To help you plan your visit, check out our video on Milan public transport and our complete guide to suggested one-day trips from Milan. And if you're hungry for more art, be sure to watch our detailed analysis of Milan's other great monuments, like the fantastic Duomo and the beautiful basilicas and museums. Thank you so much for watching.